And no, before you conjure up your own story about what that means, no, I'm not a good guy. I didn't kidnap her for good reasons, and I didn't do it for her sake either. I did it for the money and my own well-being. Now before I get all the hate for what I'm about to say, just know this. At this point, I can kind of guess that I'm gonna die soon. And that being said, let me start this off. I'm 36 years old, an alcoholic, no skills, no talents, and I'm dead broke. As all depressed alcoholics do from time to time, I was looking for the meaning of life at the bottom of a bottle. The best place for me to do that was inside my favorite rundown crappy bar. On a typical day, it was just me and the other regulars. Each had a story, I'm sure, but none of us spoke unless it was to ask for more forget-me juice. That particular day was a little different. I saw a man step in that I didn't know. Well, 3 men to be exact. 2 bigger men dressed a little too nice for a rundown bar like mine, and one dressed like a young Middle Eastern rock star. Tan skin, leather jacket, gold chains, you name the stereotype and he's got it. Naturally, my unimportant broke butt tried my best to ignore him, figuring he's more trouble than it's worth. I order another beer, and hear the young punk call out,
"Hey, that one's on me."
Talk about a thick Middle Eastern accent. This kid really did have it all. I could almost feel the hair gel swallowing up the room like some blob from an old horror movie as he approached. Needless to say, even as a no-brains lackey like me, I knew this kid's nice gesture came with a price, so I did my best to shake my endless thirst along with my head to signal that I was done for the night. Unfortunately, I heard the kid's voice perk up again as he took a seat next to me at the bar.
"Don't listen to him. The night's just starting. Besides, I can tell when a guy needs a little more drink in him."
His voice carried with it a certain salty yet sultry tone, a tone that let me know that 1, he was in charge, and 2, if I play nice, so will he. At this point, leaving was out of the question. His 2 brawny friends just so happened to stand directly behind my seat, and I sure as heck wasn't going to tell them to move out of my way. So instead I sat there, staring straight ahead at the rows of cheap liquor and alcohol on the shelves behind the bar. The barkeep proceeded to hand me a fresh bottle of my favorite cheap brand, before quickly going to the far end of the shop and pretending we didn't exist.
"So, my new friend, I've had some guys looking for someone like you. A guy down in his luck who wouldn't mind a little cash his way."
There was a brief pause as he seemed to rack his brain.
"Now Jack, it is Jack, right? My men happened to see you go from here to your crappy little apartment a few blocks away every night for the last few weeks. No job, right?"
I found it harder to ignore him now. He seemed to know a little bit more about me than I'd like. Regardless, I stayed quiet.
"Well, that's what my men tell me. Must collect unemployment then. Trust me, I don't want that for you. No family, no friends, no co-workers. That's no way to live. I can give you all that, my friend. I can take away your crap luck and give you something great."
His tone shifted back and forth between demeaning and pitying me. The transition between the two was so smooth you'd think he was born with the devil's tongue. Still, I knew bad news, and this guy was it. Nah, I think I'm happy with my crappy little life. I stared intently at the untouched bottle of alcohol in front of me, trying hard to phase out of existence.
"Really? Is that why your wife left you and took the kids? Deadbeat husband, just kinda your style? How long since you've seen them? 5 years or so?"
I felt my muscles tense up. He was getting to a very sore subject of mine. I think he noticed, as he tried to change his tactic.
"Friend Jack, we can give you everything you want. You work 2, maybe 3 days out of the year, and you earn a good chunk to live off of for the rest of that year."
I'm not sure if it was his voice, his tone, or his words, but I felt my body starting to relax again. Hearing someone say all this to my face really started to remind me how much of a useless sack of crap I really am. 5 years of being unemployed, drinking, and battling the one-eyed monster by myself left me a shell of who I used to be. I was a loving father, husband, and boss. Yes, boss. I owned my very own small penny stocks office for a while. Well, That is until one of my coworkers ended up doing some fraudulent things that got me and my company sued and closed down. I escaped from the jail time, unlike him, but I was financially ruined. That's why I started drinking. I knew I needed a jump start, and I was slowly losing my ability to say no to this man. "Well, what's the job?" I asked, my voice a shadow of itself. With that one sentence, I knew I dove into the shark tank.
Simple, my friend. All you have to do is take a vehicle we own, drive with a passenger, drop him off when he says stop, ignore any sounds you might hear, and drop him back off where he says to. You leave the vehicle with us, and we'll drive you home in a separate vehicle. Nice and easy. Expect your payment the next day, and we'll contact you with any other jobs that might pop up. If for any reason someone asks you what you might be doing for a living, just be honest. You're a chauffeur for private individuals, and have no idea what they do for a living.
Well, at this point I knew that whatever this was had to be illegal. Sadly, my morals were just as empty as my pockets. Alright, I'm in, just as long as I only have to drive. His face lit up with my words, and he bought me enough alcohol to go from depressed douchebag into a distinctly optimistic douchebag. I figured that maybe with the money I make I could earn enough to get me back on my feet. Maybe I could even see my kids again. A week later I get a knock on my door. A truck was waiting outside and the man knocking says he's my passenger. I do exactly what they tell me to do. I drive, I park, I wait, drive off, drop off, and go home. The pay was amazing. It wasn't quite the 2 or 3 times per year that I was promised, but with the lack of knowledge in what I was doing, it didn't matter. All I cared about was the easy pay for the easy job. Eventually, I made enough to put down in a small home and a not-so-terrible car. A little bit more cash, and I'd finally be ready to make the call to my ex-wife. Now here's when things turn wrong. It starts off normal. I'm sitting in my house, I hear a knock, get dressed and open the door. This time there's 2 men, both burly and big. This was a first. Normally it's just one guy, usually a small size. Screw it, I thought. Job's a job. They told me the payment upon completion was $70,000 US. I felt my metaphorical jaw drop. This was the payment I was looking for. I quickly took the keys and headed out with them. When we hit the parking lot, I saw another red flag. Normally the vehicle was a rundown sedan or an inconspicuous SUV, but today it was a beat-up old white van, the type utility companies sometimes drive around in. No windows on the outside except for the front. I felt my stomach drop. Something was telling me to decline this job, but another part reminded me of the $70,000 US that could be in my hands by the next day. Screw it. I doubt they'd let me say no anyway. I walked up to the van while one of the 2 men walked up to the passenger door and the other climbed in the back. I kept telling myself to stop thinking about things. Just go with the flow in my own little world like I usually do. I swallowed my worries along with my morals and took off. The men had me drive to an old industrial park. It was past working hours, so no one was really around. For a while it seemed like we didn't have a destination. We drove around a few blocks while my passenger was looking out the window for something. Eventually my headlights swung around to reveal a young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, playing around by herself. She was yelling and giggling at what I figured was her imaginary friend. The poor girl looked thin and dirty, like she had been spending the last few nights on the street. I felt my foot subconsciously press on the gas when I saw her. I was praying we'd just drive by this little girl and end up stopping at some drug dealer who needed to be roughed up. No such luck.
Pull up just past the girl. I'll tell you when to drive off.
My passenger stared intently at the girl, and I instantly knew what was happening. Crap, I thought. Crap, crap, crap. This is the kind of job I was always worried about. This is the type of job that made me hesitant to work like this in the first place. Regardless, I did what he told me to. I knew he was strapped with a pistol, and if I said no, I'd be dead and they'd take the girl anyway. Or at least that's how I justified it. So I pulled up about 10 feet past the girl and stopped. I heard the back door swing open and muffled screaming, before a loud thump of a small body hitting the metal floor of my van.
Drive,
the man barked next to me. I obliged. I fought off tears. I didn't want to do this. It got even harder to keep my calm when I realized how thin the metal sheeting was that separated the front of the van from the back. I could hear her crying from where I was sitting. My hearing even felt heightened, like my conscience was telling me, "Look what you've done, just listen to her, this is your fault." And that's what I did. I listened. "My brother'll find me," she cried out to the man in the bag. I heard him snort before saying,
Your family's dead, and I hate to break it to you, but you never had a brother. Even if you did, we burned down the whole freaking house with everyone inside.
There was a moment of silence before he added,
If you're lucky, your granddad will pay for you. If not, we'll find someone who will.
"My brother isn't dead. I was just playing with him. He's all dressed up for Halloween." Another chortle came from the man. I thought my morals were shot, but this guy really seems to enjoy what he does.
You were playing by yourself. If your mind's already that far gone, we might as well just auction you off now.
I prayed for this ride to end. Of course, that meant it was the longest drive they ever made me take. We left the city outskirts and went out into the countryside. At least 2 hours had passed since we made the grab. The night was starting to fall, and for a while it was silent. The constant verbal assault by the thug in the back left that poor girl speechless. She still refused to say her brother was gone, no matter how much the man told her about her family. Crap. I'm starting to tear up again just remembering this. I'm such a sick guy for doing what I've done. I'm sorry. Let me hop back into this. Anyway, about 30 more minutes pass and I start to hear her sing. "My brother likes to bite when he comes at night. His eyes are black and his skin is white. He'll come for you and he'll come to chew. He'll..." That's as far as she got before I heard a loud smack and whimper, followed by the man yelling at her to shut up. I ground my teeth and kept driving. After a while, I was finally told to turn off a dirt road and keep going until I saw a door in the ground. At first I was confused, but then I saw a cellar door out in the middle of the tall prairie grass. It looked like a bomb shelter or something of the sort. It was made of thick metal and dug straight down into the earth. I drove off-road and parked next to it. My passenger nodded at me and told me to wait before he got out. I heard the back door open slightly, and after that, then nothing. No one shut the back doors. Heck, no one even stepped out towards the cellar. "Oh no," I whispered to myself. At this point, there was practically no light beside the light from my headlights, and I'd be screwed if I stepped out of the van for anything. He told me to wait, and that's exactly what I planned on doing. Besides, there was something about the silence that surrounded me that was wrong. For starters, I didn't hear any wind, nor any movement outside. Still, I waited. 10 minutes passed and my resolution to stay in the vehicle stood strong. 20 minutes in, and the silence was still overwhelming. 30 minutes in, and I swore I saw something crawling through the grass. Something with a long, white face. 40 minutes passed, and I heard a girl giggling and whispering from the back of the van. "How long until he looks for us? I'm getting bored." She dragged on the word in a typically childish manner. Now normally if someone had heard that they might think, "Hey, I should step on the gas and get out of here." I, however, just spent the last 3 to 4 hours contemplating on how terrible of a person I am, and how I deserve the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. And if that girl was still in the van, and if those 2 goons wandered off, then maybe I could speed away with her and take her back to her grandpa's place or to the police. Heck, I might just transfer all my savings to my kids and off myself before the Middle Eastern kid can find me and do worse. So I made my decision, and opened the driver's side door. The ringing from the dashboard alerting me the keys were still in the ignition nearly gave me a heart attack. It was the only noise in this whole prairie, and it sounded so foreign to that place. I took my time, and glanced down the side of the van to the back, while staying in my cozy den of light. I couldn't see anything back there, and it wasn't the type of darkness your eyes could adjust to either. It was thick. Almost too thick. I don't know if there are clouds in the sky blocking out the moonlight and the light from the stars, but I got no help from Mother Nature. So I pulled out my phone and turned on its camera. Cliché, I'm sure. But regardless, I flipped on the flash and held the camera's button down. I could use that as a decent flashlight for a quick check I planned to make. I swallowed my unease and slid out of the van. My feet landed on the tall, dry grass below me. It was nearly up to my shin. I arched myself downwards, as I slowly crept towards the open back doors, as if I could be sneaky while holding the only light in a few hundred miles of darkness. As I approached the cabin, I swore I heard a shh sound, coming from behind the rear of the van, but it certainly didn't sound like a girl. It was almost a serpent-like hiss. I held out my phone in front of me and crept along, glancing down at the grass in case a snake was waiting for me. Eventually, the fateful moment came. I had to make the turn from the side of the vehicle to the back and see what was inside. I took a deep breath and turned quickly. My phone's light swung over and illuminated an empty metal cabin. Instantly, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My instincts were telling me I was being watched by something, some sort of predator. I turned towards where I felt his eyes on me and saw a face peering over the side of the car doors. I must have let my finger slide off the camera's button when I jerked backwards, because I heard the shutter sound before everything went pitch black on me. I propelled myself forward into a sprint towards the front of the vehicle. I could see the illumination of the interior inside of the van that was my guide. I heard my feet quickly pattering on the grass along with something else's. They sounded as if they were walking fast right behind me instead of running. It's kind of hard to explain. It sounded like a strange shuffle as if it moved like a broken man. It must have been only a few seconds to get from the back of the van to the driver's seat, but it felt like so much longer. As soon as I slammed that door shut, I shifted into drive and skidded down the dirt road I came from. I could feel that thing looking at me through the driver's side window, but I refused to return its gaze. Instead, I drove and drove. I passed through the suburbs before hitting the city limits. I couldn't shake what I saw, nor could I shake the feeling of being watched. I drove into the busiest and most lit-up section of the city that was full of clubbers and professional night workers. Strangely enough, when I saw the red and blue lights come on behind me, I felt relieved. I had no idea what I did wrong to get stopped, but I didn't care. I saw a cop walk from his patrol vehicle to my front window. He motioned for me to roll down my window, and I did. "Hi, I just pulled you over to let you know your back doors are wide open. I don't want you accidentally tapping any other vehicles or anything with the door." I broke down in the middle of his speech. I cried, I laughed, I shook. I'm pretty sure that his first thought was that I was on some kind of drug. I didn't care. I'm a grown man, and when that cop spoke to me I felt relieved, like this authority could help me in some way. "Sir? You alright? You feel safe to drive?" He stepped close to my window, trying to smell for anything unusual, I suspect. He didn't have to. I would have told him if I was on something. "Officer? I kidnapped a girl. I don't know who she was, I don't know where I left her, but she's gone now." I looked up at the officer and saw the shock sweep his face. For an instant he seemed lost for words, and then his training kicked in. He called in for backup and asked me to step out of the vehicle and apprehended me. I didn't resist. When I was at the station, I told them everything. Everything I just told you, I told them. They could pin a dozen or so crimes on me as an accomplice, but the only one they were really interested in was the one about the girl. They didn't believe me about the face I saw lurking behind the van doors. That is, until they saw the picture. For now, I'm on bond. I've agreed to testify on a half-dozen people I worked for. I haven't seen that thing again, but his face still haunts me, and so does that experience. They never found the girl. I have no idea where she could have gone in the country fields, but I wish her the best. I really do. As for me, I assume my time on Earth is ticking down. I'm testifying against some big-time criminals, and I expect to be offed either before or after the hearings. The cops offered to put me into witness protection. I might take the offer, but I'm still a criminal. Either way, I feel like my time's coming up.